All right, everybody. My name is Neil. I'm the editor of Vulture. Welcome to Vulture Festival 2023. Thank you for coming. This is our first event. It's a fantastic event. They're all fantastic. No, I had this great sort of lead off. It was going to go awesome. Anybody who follows Jerry on Instagram knows that, yeah, if you don't, you should. Knows he's a big believer in office culture. He's encouraging everybody to go back to the workplace, and he himself comes, well, yeah, it's controversial. He himself comes in a lot, and he loves the sort of collisions he has with coworkers. He also makes the rounds with plates of donuts, as you may have seen. It's a big hit. So it was on a recent visit to the office, really not that long ago, when he stopped by my desk, and he was asking how Vulture Festival is coming together. And I said, great, we're very excited about the lineup that we've already secured. And I asked, if he was interested in appearing again. And he said, of course, always. And we started noodling on what that could look like. And it was a few years ago that he did an event with Jim Carrey when Jim was very active with some political art. And it was sensational. We loved it. And we were thinking in that vein. And the first name that popped in mind for him, he said, I'm really intrigued by what Sharon Stone is doing. She has an exhibition, Welcome to My Garden, out in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I just love the art that she has. I would be so fascinated to talk to her. I said, Jerry, that feels like a very reasonable request. I think we can make that ask. And we did, and it came together very quickly. I know that they're both very excited to talk to each other. I'm very excited to listen to them. And so I'd like to hand off to Jerry and Sharon Stone.
Thank you. Hello, hello, Vulture Festival. How are you? Great, great to see you. Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Jerry.
So, we're nervous Nellies, but so are you. I don't have to introduce Sharon's work, but I do want to say a few words about her. That she is a force of nature who exists seemingly on another plane because she has been looked at and talked about and performed for and attacked and loved and spit up and re-centered more than anyone alive, possibly. How many of you here have heard of or have read her book? Yeah. It's a fantastic book.
Thank you.
And I want to just quote, we're going to give a boring talk about art because I don't really know about movies. So I do want to open with the words you used in the book to open the book. And if you would read it, that would be really great. I printed out that. And these are the first words of the book.
Oh, this is by Emily Dickinson. This is in the front. It's from Because I Could Not Stop for Death. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste. And I had put away my labor and my leisure too, for his civility. We passed the school where children strove, at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were towards eternity.
Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. You hear the heartbeat in that rhythm of the words. Because I could not stop for death. Ba-bum, bum, bum. And then it interrupts itself once and then picks up again. I guess I would love to ask you why you began your book with this extraordinary, otherworldly piece of writing.
Well, I've had this weird experience of having a lot of death experiences in my life. I was hit with lightning when I was a kid.
Oh.
I was about, oh gosh, I must have been 16, and we had our own well. I grew up really, really in the country, you know, like 87 people in my school. Kids drove their tractors to school after they finished their chores. And I worked in a big boy restaurant. And I was going to iron my uniform. And I had my hand on the faucet and the iron like this, and lightning hit the well. And the lightning came up through the water. And it hit so hard that, because I was holding the iron and the faucet, that it literally picked me up off the ground and threw me about 10, 12 feet across the kitchen. And I hit the refrigerator and was just out. My heart just stopped. And my mother, not that this was unusual for her, but she just belted me. She hit me across the face as hard as she could.
I grew up like that too.
And brought me to and took me to the hospital. And then I had to keep being on a heart machine for about a week.
Yeah.
Because it gave me an arrhythmia that I still have. And then a couple of years before that, I was breaking a wild horse in our side acreage. And because we would buy these horses for like $15, $20, and then break them and sell them to other families. And this horse took off, and my mother was hanging sheets on the clothesline in the lower acreage, and it took me under the clothesline. And I was barefoot, so my feet went through the stirrups, and it was a plastic clothesline, and I couldn't get out. And so I was nearly decapitated. It cut me like 16 inches up in here, down here, and about, they said, 1/4 of an inch from my jugular vein. I was really badly cut open. And then I had this stroke and 9-day brain bleed when I was 41.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Because then you actually got into the carriage with death and eternity.
Yes, when I couldn't get to the hospital for a variety of reasons. And when I eventually did, I was put in an MRI tube. And when I came out, I was unconscious. And I woke up, and there was no one in the room but my doctor. And he was very quietly stroking my hair, which is never a good thing. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, I'm dying, aren't I?" And he said, "Well, you're bleeding into your brain." And I said, "Oh, I should call my mother while I can still talk, right?" And he said, "Yes. Yes, you should. And I'll get the number on the phone for you." And then I called my mother and my best friend. And then suddenly I was just traveling out of my body, like up into this, I don't know how to quite explain it, like this chasm, this tube of white light. And I could see people who had passed away, close friends of mine, looking through this kind of light at the top, looking down at me, smiling at me. And I felt like I was going to them, and I was traveling really quickly. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I was kicked in the chest, like really hard. Like I felt like I was kicked by a horse or a mule, because I grew up in the country. And I don't know if they defibrillated me. I don't know what happened. But all of a sudden, I and sat up. And the doctor yelled, "Don't anybody touch her." And he said, "What do you need?" And I remember sitting up and that my feet wouldn't touch the ground. And I said I had to pee. And I got down, like I hopped down, and I felt like I was so tiny. And I went in the bathroom, and I felt like I peed for like an hour. You know, I just felt so out of my body. And then he said, "We've sent for another ambulance, and they're going to take you to a special hospital for neurological trauma." And they sent me to a hospital where I was in this bed that was on a scale that weighed body mass, and I wasn't in like a regular kind of intensive care. I was on this wheel where we were all just separated by drapes, and there was a nurse's station in the middle, and there were about 10 of us, and it was right after 9/11, just like in the 20s of September.
So the whole world was traumatized.
Oh, it was
too.
awful. And they had the TVs playing all the stuff hanging from the ceiling. And there was a girl next to me who had such severe curvature of the spine that they'd broken her back in like 10 places to reset her back. And she didn't have parents, and her sister was with her. And she just screamed nonstop. And the man across the nurse's station from me died about 2 days in. And I remember just watching as his vitals were falling apart, and then eventually he died. And then they took him away, and then they took away the machines, and then they took away the bed. And it was just like we were all in this space where, you know, the crashes were over and over on TV, and the red alert, yellow alert, and then people were screaming around me, and some people were dying, and some people were making it, and it was just so traumatic. And it was just unbelievable. It was an unbelievable experiment to have happen. And I lost 18% of my body mass.
Jesus.
And the first operation, they missed it because I had breast tumors.
Right.
And I had gone to the hospital, and they thought I had very serious breast cancer. But after they removed my left breast and half of my right breast, they found that they were benign, which was a big surprise, but still I had to have reconstruction. And so I was completely bandaged and laying on one side, so the blood had pooled on one side of my head. And so because of the pooling of the blood, they missed what had happened inside my brain the first time. Oh, but all kinds of traumatic stuff happened prior to that. It was just a nightmare because of my fame. The first doctor just wanted to be on the phone with People magazine, and he wanted to give me exploratory brain surgery, and he was just crazy, and he had to be fired. I mean, there were so many things.
It's horrifying.
And then finally they did an angiogram, and then after I'd bled into my brain for 9 days, they did an angiogram and they missed it. And then a few days later, they decided that I was faking it, and they were going to send me home. And I'd been on this drug called Dilaudid for all this time, intravenously, which is synthetic heroin. It was like I was hallucinating. I didn't know where I was. And eventually, my best friend convinced them that they should try one more look. And they said, okay, they do one more, 45 minutes, and then I had to go home.
Jesus.
And when they looked, they realized that my vertebral artery, which when Christopher Reeves had his accident, both of his vertebral arteries were ruptured. One of mine was completely ruptured. And I'd been bleeding into my face, my head, and my spine for this entire time. And that my artery was hanging by a thread, and they couldn't wake me up, and that I had to have this like 8-9 hour surgery. And I woke up later with like 23 coils in my neck, no artery. And I wanted to rip the dilaudid out. And then the next thing they said is, no, you'll have seizures. So now you have to go on this step down another day in here. And then we move you into intensive care where we start stepping you down off this drug. And then it would be a month to see if I would live from this operation, which was a new type of surgery, which I read in People magazine when I got home.
And the recovery was very long and very grueling and very traumatizing, but very life-transforming.
Yeah, years of recovery.
10 years?
About 7.
7 years.
Yeah, I came home walking on the tops of my feet and no feeling in this leg and stuttering and seeing color patterns on the wall and couldn't write my name and couldn't remember anything. I thought the gardener was a burglar. I didn't know anything, and my marriage was over. And
it ended during this, or it had been ending? Unless that's too personal, I'm just...
Well, it had been ending, but this certainly
Okay.
ended it.
Right.
This was the end.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it was not a great place to try to be recovering. It was just, you know how you get taps on the shoulder, you should probably think about making your life different, and then like these things, you really need to do something different, and then suddenly you find yourself teeth down in the dirt. It was like that. Like I wasn't listening.
So much was being taken away from you so fast.
Yeah, everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And the name of your first exhibition was Shedding.
Shedding.
So you were in the carriage with death and eternity.
Yeah.
You had given up everything, and everybody had sort of given up on you.
And I was okay with it.
You were?
Yeah. Yeah. When I got home from the hospital, there were like 5 days. First of all, I couldn't sleep at all during the night, and I could only sleep during the day. And I kept having these, I don't even know what you would say that they were. I just think it's something from spirit.
Yeah.
And it was like I was being downloaded with information that I couldn't really understand what it was, and it was like digital information.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what it was, but it was like, and I just kept saying, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. I really don't even know why I'm here. I don't know what's the point. I don't know what's going on or why or what's happening and I need someone to protect my son. I had a little baby, a barely 1-year-old child, and my husband was filing for divorce, and he and his girlfriend wanted custody of my son and got custody of my son, took custody of my baby, and disparaged me as a person endlessly, because he was with a Hearst paper, and just endlessly disparaged my person. And I lost my career, I lost my baby, everything. And then I was in court something like 7 times for increased child support until I was, and I couldn't go to work because of the condition I was in. And
you were paying them child support?
Oh, and more and more and more and more, until, I had to remortgage my house, and all my savings were gone, and I was just so up against the wall. until, I mean, I think that it was an effort to break me.
Yeah.
And until I really decided that it's the strangest thing. I was in the Bodhi Tree bookstore one time, before all this happened. Mm-hmm. And there was a Buddha statue that was being used as a doorstop. And it had a woman holding a vase upside down, like that. So it was like, there was not empty, right? And I remember saying to the person at the checkout counter, well, what's that about? Why is the vase upside down? Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. And the person said to me, well, that's the absolute moment of complete peace where you're at total emptiness.
Emptiness, yeah.
And something about that really stuck with me, and I recognized that to be completely empty doesn't mean that you're broken. It can mean that you're at absolute peace, and maybe if I just surrender everything. Mm-hmm. And then I was at my dentist.
There's a line.
And my dentist, super cool woman, super cool. And I was in the chair, and she put, I had to get a root canal, and she put the shot in my nerve, and I had a seizure. Oh, God. And I would have, because, you know, now I have a seizure condition from the brain damage, right? So I had this big seizure in the chair, and she threw everything on the floor, and then the seizure was over, and she's like, wow, do you want to go home? And I'm like, Jesus, no. Like, I've already been through all this. Please just do it now, you know? And, you know, tell me what you've been up to lately. Like, talk me. Now, please talk to me, like, and get me through this. And she started telling me that she and the woman at the desk had been in a woman's prison that weekend, and they'd been working in this woman's prison. And I was like, oh, so what do you do up there? You do dentistry. You go up there and give them some dentistry. That's so cool. And she's like, no, I teach up there. I'm like, what do you teach, dentistry? And no, I teach forgiveness in hardcore women's prison. And I'm like, that's incredible. Can you do that with me?
Yeah.
Can you come over to my house and teach me how to forgive myself? Because now I've lost everything, and I've lost custody of my adopted son, so now he's lost two mothers, and I don't know how to live with that. I can't live with it. Mm-hmm. And so they came to my house, and they taught me that only God was perfect, and that it wasn't about me. And that what I had to learn to do was be the best mother I could under the circumstances that were given to me, and to not try to make my plan of being a mom how I thought I should be a mother, but being a mother with the circumstances that were given to me, because that was my lesson. My lesson wasn't to make it up the way I thought it should be, but to be the mother in the circumstances I was in. And it really changed my life. It changed my life about everything, about to be my best in the circumstances that I was in. And that's how I ended up painting.
And how did, I don't mean to jump from this incredible story into my part of the story.
But it does take me there.
How do you think, I know you always worked as a kid. That I read that you were given a paint by numbers and stuff like that.
But I sold Christmas cards door to door, and pots and pans door to door, and mowed people's lawns and painted barns. And
you are deeply kitchen Irish.
Yes.
And that's what she calls herself that. And can you explain to them what kitchen Irish is?
Well, we say that there are two kinds of Irish. There's lace curtains and kitchen sink. And lace curtains is when you come from high-end Irish, and kitchen sink is when you have one bathroom, and you piss in the kitchen sink when the bathroom is not available.
Yeah. And yeah. And you studied art, and you have a bachelor's degree? Where did you get your bachelor's degree?
Edinburgh University.
Okay. In?
Pennsylvania.
Okay. And then acting. And then the seizure, the stroke.
Which I failed in college, by the way.
What do you mean?
I got a bad grade in acting in college.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, that's encouraging, all you losers. You could grow up to be Sharon Stone. And you picked it up again.
Yeah.
How? Where? When? What? In what room? What were you wearing?
Painting, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I always have drawn and painted. But, you know, even when I didn't really have an opportunity, I would bring crayons and different kinds of coloring books to the set. I remember bringing the Andy Warhol coloring book to set when I was doing Basic Instinct, you know, because you don't really have time, but you can do, you know, it keeps your brain alive.
Yeah.
But you don't have time or the space to do anything when you're on a film set.
You're the center of a gigantic hub.
Right.
I mean, you're the hub of a giant wheel,
right.
And everyone's touching them and looking at them and
fixing your hair and fixing your in your face all the time and fixing your clothes. But now, when I go on the road for, you know, products and speaking and stuff, I take watercolor blocks, the biggest ones that'll fit in my suitcase. I take a few different sizes, and I have a vanity case that's full of all my watercolors and brushes. So I do my watercolors on the road, and I have a folder that I keep them in, and that's kind of like my other, it's like my side thing to my big paintings that I paint. Like I have this other side, the watercolor side thing.
And how did you, you're recovering, and how did you start painting? How did that happen?
Well,
scale-wise, material, in what room? What the hell happened? I think that all artists are guided by other voices. That art is using us to reproduce itself somehow?
It is so, so true. It's so true. My friend sent me an adult paint-by-numbers kit. Because I kept saying, I want to start painting again, but I think I've lost all my brush strokes.
Right.
She sent me this adult paint-by-numbers kit. So I did one, and someone else had given me an easel. And I put it on the easel, and I was doing it, and someone took a snapshot of it, and I put it on Instagram. And then someone wrote to me and said, can we auction it off for a charity? And I was like, oh, sure. You know, and I gave it to them, and Art News took a picture of it and for the charity and said, look at those brush strokes. And of course, you know, any encouragement, and I'm like,
yeah. I like that.
Right?
I love that.
Right?
You like me?
Yeah, exactly. So another one, I started another one, and then I'm like, oh, I just don't have the patience for this, and I just painted it.
That was the break, right there, I think.
Yeah, where I was like, I can't, you know, I've just got to paint it. And then I finished that, and then I thought, oh, I need to do more to that. So I turned it upside down, and I took black paint and I started painting what looked like Japanese calligraphy down the sides of it, because I thought, oh, that's what it looks like to me. I wanted it to be this other thing. And then I thought, I'm going to go over to Blick's.
Blick's is a art store, art
supply store.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to go get some stuff. And I went in the store, and I was looking at, you know, little sketchbooks and the normal stuff that I would regularly have bought. And I walked into the back, and there were these big pre-stretched canvases.
Yeah.
Now, when I went to school, we had to stretch our own canvases.
What
we
a
had
pain.
to build our own stretchers. I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of work. And there were pre-stretched canvases in the back. And they were like, you know, over $100.
You're not supposed to use them in the art world, so this is already a major leap.
Right? And I was like, oh my God, I could afford a pre-stretched canvas. And this had never occurred to me because when I was doing this previously,
right.
there was no buying that stuff. I mean, come on. Starving actresses don't buy pre-stretched canvases,
no.
right? So I'm standing back there and I thought, well, I'm gonna buy one of these big canvases. I'm gonna buy this 4 by 4 foot canvas. And I'm gonna put that in the truck and I'm gonna take that home.
It sounds amazing and terrifying to me.
I brought it home and painted it in my bedroom. And
when? A week later, a month later?
Oh no, like same day. I was like, I'm just gonna do this. This is happening right now. And I bought acrylic paints, you know, an acrylic paint set and some brushes. And I'm like, this is happening.
Wow.
And I started and I thought, well, I'm just gonna work on my color field.
Right.
And mainly, you know, because my color, this all changed with the stroke because I started seeing colors on the wall and then I got this brain medicine, but still I see extra colors, you know? And so I thought, I'm gonna start doing this. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get a bunch of those. So I started ordering more of these canvases and the square is hard.
Squares are impossible. I see that you paint a lot of them, and it freaks me out.
Yeah, because they're the hardest thing.
No, because they're this long and the same length.
Right, and I thought they are the most difficult. So I am gonna paint only these squares and just these color-filled paintings until I get it. Because this is gonna be my lesson. And I'm gonna do 10,000 hours. Because you can't get anything until you put in your 10,000 hours. And I am gonna work at this.
And that's kitchen Irish again. It is.
It's
just work, 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 work.
And so I started doing this, and I have this very large bedroom. So I started doing it in the bedroom, and then before I knew it, I was like selling my bedroom furniture. I gave away my bed. I started moving stuff out. I bought this small bed, like a Parisian bedroom shoved to the side, and pretty soon I was just getting out of bed in my boxer shorts and t-shirt and painting all day, all night, getting back in bed, getting up, brushing my teeth, and painting all day, all night. And eventually, after about 10, 11 months of this, my kids were like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're asphyxiating yourself. You have to move this out of your bedroom. Mom, this is ridiculous. You don't eat. You don't leave your room. This is craziness.
It sounds possessed. No offense.
I was.
Yeah, you were.
I was. And then I moved down to, I have a guest house, so I moved into a bedroom in the guest house. Mm-hmm. And then I literally painted myself into a corner. Like, there were so many paintings.
Any artists here do this sort of thing in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, there they are, losers, yeah.
Right? And then I was just like, okay. So then I sold the furniture in the living room
My God.
area of the guest house. And I took that over. And then I was like, you know what, I have to build a storage space for these paintings.
Yeah.
And I made a painting for this really good friend of mine for her birthday. And she's kind of well known. You know, she was so determined. She came here from Romania.
Can I ask who it is?
Her name's Anastasia Sari. Mm-hmm. And she's Anastasia, the eyebrow lady, but she started this, and she became this global conglomerate that, like, you know, sold her business for like $6 billion. And like, she didn't even speak a word of English, and she started waxing like ladies' vaginas and eyebrows. And just built this empire. And I just am crazy about her because she's so hardworking, and she made her business out of nothing. And we're great friends because we both have this crazy same kind of work ethic. You know, I have several girlfriends like this that have just made something out of nothing. And so I made her this painting for her birthday, this like 4 by 6 foot painting. And I took it over, wrapped in brown paper to her birthday party, and she was like, well, let's unwrap it. And she has a lot of famous friends because she does like Oprah and Mrs. Obama and everybody now, you know, she's become super famous. And she had me unwrap it at the party, and I was like, oh, okay. And
wow.
I unwrapped it, and then I was trying to leave, and all these people were like, oh, we'd like to do a commission. And I was like, I don't know what that is. You know, I just like, and they were like, well, how much are these paintings?
I don't know.
And I was like, oh, they're $30,000. Because, you know, I don't know what paintings are supposed to cost. Do you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, okay. Well, how do we get in touch with you? And I was like, you know, I have to go.
Yeah.
You know, because I didn't know, I didn't have any idea what I was supposed to say or what I was supposed to do. And I just thought, bye.
Yeah. Classic artist answers.
Right? I just.
And what year ballpark is this in?
This was 2 years ago.
Wow.
And so about 8 days later, I got offered a show.
Bam.
And I was like, a show? Right? Like, I didn't even know, like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And what do you do? What do you,
yeah.
You know, like, what's a show? You know what I mean? I just didn't even really have any understanding. And still, I'm still kind of winging it.
Well, I think we're all always learning in public, and especially as an artist, 100%. You are making it up as you go.
Yes.
Everything you know is sort of in everything you do.
Yes.
Your process is you make, how many paintings do you have going at once?
Oh, you know, it just really depends. It can be anywhere from 1 to 8 or 9.
Okay, so you've got a lot going on. Do you have a drawing practice? I recommend one because it would train in line. I'm a critic, I'm sorry.
Well, it just depends on the painting. For more figurative things, I do.
Okay.
And for things, it just depends on how, you know how Van Gogh cut off his ear, right?
Yeah.
And then he got in the asylum, and all of a sudden he was painting like crazy.
Yes.
Because nobody was telling him, no, you can't hear anything.
Right.
You're crazy.
Right.
Right? He was in the asylum, and they're like, you hear something, you're crazy, paint it up, buddy. There's a point where you just listen and paint.
You get out of your own way.
You just paint.
Yeah.
And I think, quite frankly, this is why I worked so well with Paul Verhoeven, who directed Basic Instinct, because that's the thing he said to me when I was just so terrified, because I was the 13th person they offered the movie to. And even when we were shooting, I thought, oh, they're just waiting for Michelle Pfeiffer to change her mind. They don't really want me.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
And he came up to me one day and he said, you know, there's an angel that flies through you. Just get out of the way.
He's right. He's
Right?
actually right.
And so what I feel like is, like, some days I need to draw something out. Sometimes I have to draw it on the canvas, and then it's like paint by numbers. I'm just painting it in.
Yeah.
And then some days I walk down and I put the canvas up, and it's almost like the canvas is lighting up. And it's like, and I turn around and I look at the paint, and the paint is actually lighting up and saying, you know, it's me. Or it's me and me, mix us. And it's this brush, and it's that, and you got to paint here, and it's this. And I wake up in the morning and I hear, you know, and I just know this is what we're painting. And I look at the canvas, and the canvas, it's already on the canvas, and I can already see it before I even start.
Do you, I like to leave my own writing. Well, the painting practice and the writing practice have something in common.
Yes.
Where they're very, very solitary.
Yes.
Except I trained myself to listen to music. For the first 10 or
Yes.
15 years, I had to sit in complete silence, and I was going squirrely, completely nuts. And now I could listen to Norwegian death metal if I had to, anything and everything. What do you listen to when you paint?
I listen to a variety of different things. I mean, I really like, you know, Ella Fitzgerald and Ray Charles and these kind of people. But when I really need to tune in, I always listen to Hildegard von Bingen. Do you know who that is?
The opera singer?
Yeah.
Am I right?
She's a very classic, old-fashioned.
Yeah.
It's almost like cathedral style music. It's very. It's almost like music you'd hear in a chapel. It's very.
Echoey? No.
No, it's very. It's almost like chamber music.
Art is like writing and acting. Well, first of all, I think art is part of a cosmic force.
Yes.
That is no more or no less important than any other thing.
Yes.
That our species somehow along the way developed what I think of these arts as the greatest operating systems that our species have ever developed to examine consciousness.
Yes.
And the visible and the invisible worlds.
Yes.
But they are very subjective, right? Like your Hamlet is different than my Hamlet. When you see Hamlet, you and I don't see the same play. We don't see the same things. I feel like...
We don't also have the same trauma with our father.
Like?
Like Hamlet.
That's really true.
Right.
And go on about that.
Well, Hamlet...
I'm in.
Hamlet is expressing his father wound, and he's trying to become himself, but he's so oppressed that he has to break through the wound, and he's trying to talk to life and death itself.
Totally.
About his ability to be and become through the wound, through his trauma from his parents, which we all have, no matter how good or bad your parenting is.
Absolutely.
We have to break the wound, break that cord from the wound of the parent, and every person has that wound. And it's about our beingness. Can we actually be through that trauma wound? So everybody's Hamlet is going to be different, exactly.
Yeah.
Because all of our wounds are different, but all of that need to be, can we do it?
Yeah.
Can we mature? Can we adult?
Wow. And it involves something that I think I'm seeing in your work more and more, and I'm going to try to get to the work. Our clock is not going, so we could be here all night, people. A kind of radical openness and a radical vulnerability in your work. A naivety that seems pushed away without any nostalgia at all in your work. And I really admire there not being weird references to old, anyway. What about this idea of being in a field that's so subjective, where nothing, we cannot prove that Vermeer is better than Norman Rockwell.
Well, we also don't know if Vermeer was using, what was it called, the camera obscura.
Obscura. We don't even know.
Right.
And it doesn't matter to me.
No, because he did it great.
Yeah, it was so great.
Yeah.
Let's look at some work. And somebody tell me what time it is, because what? Oh my God. Let's look at some work.
Okay. All right.
Shit. Okay. Do I just push this thing? Okay. I want to talk about the title of this painting. When was this painted?
This was painted in 22, This is called It's My Garden, Asshole.
Let's talk about the title. I have to stop and get on the title. What up?
It's two things. That's a drone in the garden. And it really got this title because I had this really dear, dear friend. And she was over 40. She was trying to have a baby with her husband, and she lost the baby. And it was really hard, really hard. And I've been there, and I'm sure many women in this room have been there. It's the unspoken thing. And then she got pregnant, and she was able to carry the baby through. But she was in her mid-40s, and she gained a lot of weight. Not the LA kind of pregnancy, right? Right, she had a regular pregnancy, gained the regular amount of weight, and had the most beautiful baby ever. And her in-laws came to visit, meet the baby, and they all went out to dinner to have pizza and celebrate the baby. And her father-in-law said, you know, you really, really shouldn't be eating that. I mean, look at you.
Unbelievable.
You know, and she called me, and she was just so broken because she was so hormonal.
Yeah.
And she was so upset. And I said, you know what, it's your garden. And that asshole doesn't really get an opinion.
Boom.
Because you gave him the greatest gift you could ever give, right? You did the greatest thing you could ever do, and you did it past the date, past your shelf life. And it made me so mad. I was like the cartoon character where the tears are going like this. And so I named the painting, It's My Garden, Asshole.
It's a real beauty.
Thank you.
I want to then also dwell on the It's My Garden. What is the word garden to you? Because you use it in a few titles.
Well, because, you know, at the beginning,
Here's welcome to my garden.
We thought that God was nature, the moon, the sun, the water, the earth, and we loved God in this way. And then when man decided that he wanted the land, the water, the earth, everybody chose these various religions in order to speak to God, and threw God up in the sky, and then created all these borders and boundaries and subjectivity about you are Canadian, you are Indian, you are whatever, Chinese, you are American, you are French, and God is up in the sky. But prior to that, we were just human beings who loved nature, and God was in nature. But in reality, the garden is where God lives. God lives in nature, and in the end, nature is going to make all the decisions. Like, you don't have to believe in, you know, climate change. You know, gravity doesn't require your belief. Like, you know, climate change doesn't require your belief. It's going to occur with or without you. You know, that tsunami doesn't require your belief. You know, so that's sort of how I feel about the garden thing.
And the idea of garden, I was thinking about Eve in the garden. You were making me think about it, and I was thinking Eve had the courage and the will to eat the apple. And she ate
in this parable,
apple.
yes.
And then I think she did something that no man would ever do, ever. She picked another apple and brought it back to Adam and shared that apple with him. And the reason I think that women are of an advanced species, hate me, I don't care, that they know things, is that women ate an apple and a half, where men only ate a half an apple. And this made me think of all of that. Sorry.
And there's 14 chapters that have been taken out of the Bible, all the chapters that have the women in them.
That's us. That's our job. We take women out. And we could do 2 hours on that.
Right.
Motherfuckers. Okay. I just want to note that these are not, nothing is totally realistic or totally abstract.
Right.
You have to all understand that, Art 101. that yes, there's a flower in it and shapes and colors. And
Yeah, these are never the whole snake. There's no head or tail because
you see the snake, my loves?
snakes are the only animal that sheds its skin constantly. It's the only one. And what I like about that is that it's the one.
I miss that.
It's the one that changes and grows and changes and grows and just keeps shedding as it continues to change and grow. So I put this shape in a lot of my paintings because it's very interesting to me that this is about changing and growing. Everything's about what is receiving these grocery store flowers really mean when someone shows up and gives you those grocery store flowers and invites you into that red room. What does that really mean? And do you really want to go there anymore? Yeah, I don't think so.
I love the violet. Is that what the blue or purple?
The iris, yeah.
The iris is gorgeous.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to speed through these. And then there's a kind of change of mood where you get like a Chinese kind of landscape, but a bayou.
Yeah.
What year is that?
That's like 2021.
And how is the tree made?
This is acrylic, but it's also spray paint.
I thought so.
I'm starting to use spray paint to express this impressionistic perspective.
Right, and that's what it's giving so far.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to speed through these. This, I would say, is more about the long, dark night of America, but I'm
exactly.
It is?
Exactly, yeah.
I swear to God, you may all hate this work, you may love it. We don't care. But
that's the point. It's just like, why is everybody such a viper trying to destroy all the beauty of everything?
Right? Also, I want to note something that whether you're noticing it or not, you have a kind of classical composition where nothing is floating completely outside the painting. It's all contained. You see how those sort of snakes on the top, snakes on the right, snakes up the left side are bordering the painting? Mm-hmm. That works for me.
Thank you.
There is a breach in the atmosphere, but this would be more abstract.
This is about 9/11.
You know, it's funny you say that because now I see that.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Giverny, can you pronounce it?
Giverny. This is about, I know people that...
Do you all know what that is? Okay.
This is about, I have these friends that it's their family legacy to take care of these giant, important estates. And they took care of Versailles, and I got to go there when it was closed. And then they took care of Giverny, which is where Monet painted the beautiful water lilies. And so I got to go there when their kid was about 6 or 7. And I said to their kid, will you take me everywhere and show me where all the paintings were painted from? Mm. And we got to go up in the rooms and look through the porch boxes, and we got to crawl around on the bridges and pull away the brush. And oh, this is where the rowboat painting was painted from, and oh, this is where this painting was painted from. And we got to just literally crawl around in the grass and see where Monet painted all the paintings from. And so this was my impression of my day with the 6-year-old there, which was just thrilling.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Thank you. This is just the way dreams look to me sometimes.
I want to get to the recent work. Here's recent. I think your work has taken a real turn. And I'd like to say I'm noticing it in this one. And I wonder if you would talk about River.
River is my 11-month-old nephew and godson died of sudden infant crib death.
Oh.
And his name was River. And I painted this for him, like, and where do you go? Mm-hmm. And what's it like? And I've always felt odd. And I always thought that
Odd or odd?
Odd, O-D-D.
Okay.
And I felt like there were other solar systems and other places and other things, and that I was from one of those other places. And
You are.
thanks.
I'm afraid.
And that it looks more like this where I'm from, and that that's where he was going.
There's a river in it, you know, a kind of flat river squiggling, and also looks like a ghost or a spirit. What's
Party.
going on in the party?
Well,
And when is this painted?
this I painted a while ago. This I painted when this is very similar to the painting that I painted for my friend. Except she was Romanian, so I painted the floating balls at her party were in the Romanian, the darker colors from Romania. And I painted this because I just felt like this was like a Hollywood party.
Is that what they're like?
Yeah.
This one's a real beauty. When was this made?
I just painted this.
This is a beauty.
I just painted that.
Do you see how the shape in the center appears to kind of hold the whole thing together or blow it apart or to be a body? What's going on here?
Well, I started making these more graphic underpaintings because now I paint in different stages. So now I paint an underpainting. I paint in stages, an underpainting, then sometimes a middle painting, and then the painting. Because now I understand what I didn't understand when I started, which is that there isn't just the painting.
Artists, do you hear that? There's not just the painting.
Right. The painting comes in stages. The painting comes in levels and layers.
Yeah.
And that's why when you say how many paintings do I have going, sometimes a painting happens where the painting just comes. But sometimes you're painting a painting and you recognize, oh, this is the underpainting. And then you paint again and you realize this is the structural piece that's going to hold the ultimate painting. So this had stages. This had an underpainting. This had the graphic piece that was the structured piece. And then it had the butterfly. And then in the end, I was like, I want to paint this body. I want to do the body in the middle. And I wasn't sure whether I was going to paint the body or what I was going to do. And then I decided I was going to draw the body in.
Good move.
In this pencil. And once I drew the body in the pencil, I was like, oh, that's it. I don't want to keep going. That's enough.
I guess our clock just popped on. Since our time I could do this for hours. You wear a lot of hats. You do not stay in your own lane.
Well, I was told in the beginning of my career when I wanted to write a book, when I wanted to do other things, stay in your lane. And I'd say, but I'm a lyricist, stay in your lane. I wanted to write a book of short stories. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, you could only do a memoir. And eventually I was like, well, I'll just turn my short stories into a memoir.
Yeah.
You know, and lace them together. Because I'd written a bunch of short stories for different magazines. Then I just started realizing that really a book is a bunch of short stories. And, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that. And
what do you want to tell everybody about?
You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Do you hear that?
And all you have to do is do it. The thing is, it requires discipline. And what you have to do is you have to have discipline. And you have to have disciplinary functionality, which means you have to have discipline and you have to complete a course of action. People start all kinds of things, but they don't finish them. And they don't finish them, and by finishing them, I don't mean you just finish the thing you do. You have to take it all the way to completion.
Right.
You have to finish it and then demonstrate your completion of it. And that's a whole thing. You know, so it's not just that you can do it, you have to do it and finish it and then continue your discipline. And discipline is everything.
Everything.
Discipline is freedom.
Yes.
You know, I don't care whether you're working out or having a friendship. It's discipline. If you think, geez, why haven't I heard from my friend? Well, has your friend heard from you?
Amen. I have to say it to my wife all the time. Was that wrong to say? No, but yeah.
Right? It's really about your effort.
You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. That is who is in front of you. You don't have to love it. You don't have to hate it. The art world makes it hard. John Waters said to me, he talked about the curse of fame.
Right.
And I wish we could talk about that, but he said in the art world, it's very hard to be taken legitimately because of this. What have you run into about that, if anything? I would say most people they don't want to take me seriously. I mean, That's
I have
true.
that troubling vagina problem.
Yeah.
And then if you're attractive, that's again, you must be an idiot.
Or you slept your way there and all of that.
You can only sleep your way to the middle, so forget that. And I would also say that great success makes people think that you don't have any talent. If you're pretty successful, you're probably considered to be talented. But if you're greatly successful, your talent will always be in question.
And if you're a woman and you're all of that, then what are you?
Fucked.
Fuck nothing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people, you know, still, you know, want me to audition. It's like,
can that really be true?
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay because, you know what, I could do a great audition. Get ready for this.
Yes, somebody should, Well, unfortunately, we have to stop. I think your work is amazing. Your life is incredible.
You're very kind. Thank you. This is, we've talked, I just want to say this one thing. We talked a little bit before about what is a critic. And I want to say Jerry is the only critic that I follow. Because many people think that to be a critic is to criticize, not to give critical thought, not to think about something and say, what makes this interesting? What makes this valuable? And to have critical thought and to have critical knowledge about what really is art, who are artists, what makes an artist, what makes this interesting or valuable, or what is good or not good about this, and what gives encouragement to someone or not, and why. And this is what makes Jerry a Pulitzer Prize-winning critic, because he has critical thought. And when you see critics who are just snarky and they think that's witty or funny, that's just someone who got in for free. Okay, that's the difference between someone who gives critical thought and has the depth and prowess of their job. And that's what makes Jerry such a great critical thinker. And why, when I got the call that I got to do this today, I literally thought I was going to pass out. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you. It's amazing.